respected chief guest, president and discussants of the book which is released today, and respected Oza Soyam, the author of the book. I'm really glad to be one of the discussants of the book written by Oza Soyam, who himself is my own mentor, and I shall always be his student for all the time to come. I think main ideas of the book has already been explored by the previous discussants. I will try to take a little different view of the book, being a woman, carrying an identity of being a woman. Before that, I would like to express what I felt when I read the book. When I read the book, I realized the passion, the love Oja has for this land and for this people. I do not think a person who is doing an academic exercise for just the sake of academic exercise can write a book of this sort. It will take a lot more to write a book of this kind. And I find that Oja has been following the incidents, the development, political, social, religious of this land for a very long period of time, meticulously following it, which is reflected in this book. And I could also see Oja's commitment to humanitarianism and universalism, and of course, Marxism. And I can see that Oja has a terrific intertextual knowledge, the knowledge of not only the subject or the discipline that he teaches, but as someone who reads extensively beyond his discipline, who have read novels, who have read poetry, and who have known art and culture in other forms. And above all, Oja has took a very strong stance in the book regarding our concept of and our desire of sovereignty and self-determination. And I can sense Oja's utter honesty in writing this book, academic as well as personal, as we can sense that it takes a lot of courage to write a book of this sort in these precarious times of ours. As I have said before also, the previous discussants have expressed chapter-wise the basic ideas of the chapters. So I would not be elaborating much on the chapterization, but let me bring some ideas as I go about trying to understand the book. Oja has asked the question, who is a terrorist? And the simplest answer that I have found is that a terrorist is the one who doesn't take no for an answer, and thereby bringing a closure to a disclosure, a closure to a discourse. A terrorist haragadi mina no harapa ay ngamoy harapa sunglaw lawdaba. Adugi makha tabaduna kaidoge haiba matamda wari watai ama tawbada khana nainabada makha taba sunya yadabada. Terrorism is defined by humanitarian law, state law, international law paradigm. Yamna personal yamna within the family the discussion. So if somebody is not going to take no for an answer, I think it can be any one of us. Terrorist. Especially in the life of a woman, stories the labor, pictures and paintings the labor, narratives the labor definition sisu kitang narrativize to ba machangbra akhoi gi understanding du purakna bagi damakta sine hangna thamjari base institutional definition of law gi makhada yengu taragadi as a woman we have hardly anything to get from it if we try to understand from institutional definition be it terrorist or be it sovereignty or self-determination akhoi kitang narrative oiba form da chathabana akhoi gi women namu oiba gi understanding the hena pura kadra hai ba hak thamjagi mathang da ozagi larikta terrorist amaga conversation to ba yagadra hai ba hang se hangi terrorist amaga conversation toge hairabadi truth si power ga khaidokna ba machange power na truth to construct to handa ba machange commonly shared about wakhalol khara common ba wakhalol agenda khara sangi adugi mathakta represent tawri hariba state natraga khigi terrorist group na represent tawi haina claim tawriba people gi participation amasu sange haina ozana thambi mathangda ozana akhoi identity se explore tawna bo hona bada identity se heterogeneous oi multicolor oi monochromatic natraga identity amakhak nati habisi ozana mayek sing na thambi ozagi lari asi pabada aina sum uzabada akhoi gi theoretical oiba layout se ozana boundary se push toraga piramli ba theorization du gi wang da chalaga hen engage to ba theory ama purapasi ozagi ozana attempt ama thambi bra hana hak uzai masi gi theorization se da akhoi gi non violence na kari oiba the idea of sovereignty na kari oiba sigumba freedom na kari oiba sigumba se ozagi like the in ugo fangjai mada yamna phazari badi sovereignty gi definition sida akoina sovereignty haraga indivisible oiba absolute oiba inalienable oiba principle du nattaba mutual respect and recognition the base of sovereignty si thamba chumi haine ozagi like ai han ugo phangi state ki sovereignty se people ki sovereignty si utpane ozagi like the state sovereignty is a reflection of people's sovereignty and not vice versa. If the people think that they can carve out a destiny for themselves, then they should be given the self-determination, and self-determination becomes an inalienable part of human freedom. So it was the idea of self-determination. Democracy ki matang da ozana hai se akoi hi namdam da di substantive oiba amasung organic oiba democracy mas ubo fangde democracy se akoi na mapalom dagi ideals ama oina puraga impose obo makhangi democracy oin ubo phangi haina ozana direct sida thambi ozana democracy si koi gi mechanism election ama oiba mechanisms the human trafficking ga samane haina ozana thambi mi ma vote matam da leiraga magi mamanduna vote hadahan ba oida tawi masagi on consciousness and choice and ideological orientation ama yauna akoina mihut khanbasi tawdri haina ozage yet another 5 years optimist that I am you will find me yet again lining up in the queue amongst stones and dust of the rumbling school roofless from your promises waiting for the stain secretly folding your promises sliding it down the box dreams of democracy locked securely for another 5 years is lies and lies and lies yet I believed like a love-struck luckless lover I wish I have chosen another polish for my nails I wish that I have chosen another polish for my nails both ki amuba the type of polish to not about top of polish ama ina khalamagadi hena bhagadabani haibagi ningamdaba voter amo ina khoi ningamdaba se ozana saying asi ai ta happy raga yamna make lan utli ozana chapter amasu akhoi youth ki harol singna kari phawri ba situations da si gi matang da ozana chapter ama happy ozana hai say our youth suffer from fear of being treated as something less than a human we do suffer as a youth ama oina mapanda laik tamakpagi identity crisis myam thopagi akoi ishamaksu aina khanbada akoi gi generation amadi adum hujiksu paranoid oiraga lay haina hak thamjaningi ada paranoia oibasida as a man gi paranoia duga women gi paranoia siga sigi matang dam khenarakpa akoina mapanda thoga akoina like tamba satri mo oina ra thabak tawna leiba matamda akoi gi identity se as a woman khatang nalaktaba as a maitai woman lakpa as a maitai woman lakadagi di akoi gi so called nationalist element mayamna akoi gi identity se appropriate tawna bo honarakpada akoi gi body and akoi gi consciousness ta mark tawna ba hak manabaki effort mayam ma hujisu leptana sathari nupi ama oirakanda nahak kari chagadabano karama matamda tumgadabano kari dress hetgadabano kanaga unagadabano kanaga nushinagadabano haibagi definition se pirpa matamdadi akoi gi identity sina akoi da kayamu yamna akoi gi ningkha tamba matki haibase akoi nu uba phangi matam pumnamakta nation amagi self determination talakpa matamda nupi gi body gi mathakta tawba lan nupi gi body gi mathakta tawba khaba sambal barbwares ngakta oina uba phangi akoina nupi ama politically nupi ama rape torapa matamda it's not the body of a woman that is raped, it's the rape of the entire nation. Akoigi physicality haida akoigi nupi moibagi sigi determination sina how far we suffer and how far we have to give up our conscious choice. And I think that is one way of looking, when we look into the idea of self-determination and nationalism, we have to look, akois the instrumental oribra. Are women as a social group, are we instrumental in making or in pursuing these ideals, or are we mere objects or tools in the hands of some organization or some people? Are we having a conscious choice? A choice is conscious oribra. We are talking about self-determination. We are very firm. Let's agree that we want sovereignty, we want self-determination. But then the fundamental questions remain: whose self-determination are we talking about? Don't we think that marginalized groups and women as a social group needs to determine their own self before they become instrumental in determining the self of a nation? Already we know that our self is terribly fragmented, dispersed, distracted, gradated with various parameters, religions, ethnicity, geopolitical locations. So how do we determine our self when the very self that we are talking about is ambiguous? So keeping that in mind, we have to understand the predicament of being a woman. Let me narrate this thing. I was watching this documentary, Auspa 1958, Tamo Sanjugi documentary, the Hanging Zarambani. The footage, footage, the Manorama incidents, incidents toro matung khada yamna kan agitation toring footage ni the mahaki sisters ina elder sisters ina kappaga laruga tawgi footage ama yawi the elder sisters na hairisi sini angang du pharaga hatokpi gi haraga su aigi sumangs da hatokpi ramba kari kaigi angang du moina puraga nam hadana toroga atumaina hundokpi ramba do ai yam pende ai sikhra su kaisu kaide huzibak laaga ai su halo law own body is violated to that is what she said. Sigi footage the aina man hides the aina sum kanzab the what's the addict on state terrorism nas quite easy hardly. Madu how I tolerate I'm ready to tolerate that. But when it comes to violation of our moral dignity as a woman, when it comes to term we didn't quote rape, which is a very problematic word already. Sexual violence or gumatamdi, nupi to keep magi life annihilate adu important oraktiva. The annihilation of her moral body is far more important. Are we going to say that that is right way of looking into it? Yes, it is. For some purpose, dignity is far more important. For some purpose, our ideals, liberty, life, and equality is worth giving up life for. But at this point, we have to realize that what makes us think, that our bodily moral preservation is more important than our life itself. What I'm trying to say is that the pain is double. The pain of being killed by a terrorist, the pain of our body being killed in terms of its moral affiliations. So how far do we reconcile, It's just impossible to reconcile, because whenever a violence is done on women, it's all about her sexual morality. The paradigm is all about sexual morality. Akoina khange Satyabhamagi Shivagi case, Kisham Premilagi Sivagi case animaksida. There was so much of controversy about what was the condition of her womb when she died or she was killed. Was she pregnant or not? That was the fundamental question. And that question literally sabotaged the inherent claim for justice. The basic idea, the basic problem is sabotage to Tugai. The more important was whether she was a moral being or not moral being at that point of time when she was killed. So how far are we willing to take up the dignity and morality of a woman which is associated to her? Si kyam sang na koi na si pubangam doino ba. La puraga sali bista mo politicize ro kadadi. We have to annihilate ourselves. The dead bodies of women are asked to answer for themselves. They are asked to rise up from the dead and question and answer what has happened to her body at the time of her death in terms of her sexuality. I don't think that intrusion is tolerable in any sense of the term. But then one must also ask me that is civilian toba potni civilian gi terror ni mi hat mi pung ni siga terror khoi state sponsored violence the mari lei de haina hangu pu suyai madu maksu khana bayai tobu tobu khang bayai akhoi gi Manipur da militarization yam sang la ab ni na hojik su BDF SI khan ba lep tabana maram oidana akhoi da armed personnel ki population se atuki mati hengalak pasna maram oidna kai dogi haiba matamda koi yumthong almost every neighborhood da asigum laba training thinam phasana pi daba. In fact, military training is the training of patriarchy in the highest forms. Mine training tor la komi sununa lera khulapta koi ngap ki senbine na lera taragadi sigum crime gi violation ki si hengalak pasdi masana tabani and sang sitna koi gi wakhal lolda crime tawraga punishment pi dabagi. That is where the ASPA come. When you do a crime, you are free from judgment under ASPA. Adugi impunity ki consciousness se within the armed personnel beyond such raganda, it has crept in our own psyche. People like you and me start thinking that I can do a crime and get away without being punished and being accountable for. Sigi psyche shidagi aina khanbada terrible forms of violence to lazy. Sigi psyche shidagi tholapra aina ha thamjage. Aduna Ozana su yamna strongly in his systematic argument the ASPA repealed togadabani has yamna strongly Ozana su thambi spirit of constitution against the ladies. It has a colonial pedigree, it's anti-democratic, and it does not solve insurgency, which it promised to solve. My purpose is to serve tawdre. Aduna si loktogadabani haina Ozana thambi. Ozana ASPA ki struggle sida yam chawras irom Shreema gi struggle su pusilaga tarik sida thambi. Aina yamna nuaizabadi Ozana irom Shreema chanungu miyoiba oina pubiraga ibi bas yam nuai. Akoina yamna thengna khre. Adi either she is a woman of loose character or she is a deity. She is a goddess or she is a woman of loose character. We must accept the fact that aigi on fraternity da lady ba aigi on kairole kai dasu irom Shreema bu sacrosanct oina uba yamna lay aduga phatte habasu yamna lay akoi masimati accept tawam thuena khale akoi na mahapu human being ama oina ubagi mahutta asumai urapasna kai doge haiba matanda maki own struggle wazari bado magi magundo ka hena manghalle hena ha khanjai ozana ozagi larikta irom sharmila bo miyoiba mo oina treat toraga magi awa base yamna ningthina pusin biraga magi apamba na karino mi ma oina oiba pami hak saba thapa pami I want to throw my nose feeding kaina ozana quote toraga ibiri base ozagi sigi the human side of sharmila se upi base aina amna baba de amna nungaiza ba ma phauze I point say adum shine lotion badi yarabale adu I point amani khakka thamjaramge koi aina ngasai going back to being a youth sida I hakna mapada sum lairakpada masi phau tinarappa imanaba singda ningkha tamba natraga self determination se tasengna koi pamabrana hana hangjabada wari sanajabada akoi maitai masasing akoi masen tinabdadi answer se pakhumji husik ambiguous oiri pami thangoi sengna pami akoi ningkha tamba haibse ngasi so haiba tadri akoi wakhan jamam nari adu mapanda leirubadagi akoi identity se atopa identity ga juxtapose to bodagi sharpen orapadagi hen akoi su masi apama se grow to khalai nurture to khalai but it will take a lot more for us to have a specific stance on whether we want self determination or not masi matam hak thamjage hak na ngasi baw do loina rak Kashmiri friends sing they are very much clear about what they want whether it's good or bad that's a different thing but mokoi di azadi pame have them koi am clear oi even akoi ni naga sing now how clear oi brahana khanse adu akoi gi sin na mapan de leiwa diaspora hai tare youth sing se siki marak to the ambiguity yam na chauna lei have se hak ai gi experience na khangjai uzai masi lalam basu hai tabu tabu masi aina phawgi haijabani and going back aroi bada akoi gi ozagi who is a terrorist haina haibasi sum parul kanda hakna sum khanjabase Albert Camus the rebel haibelari adu ningsingai ai ngasi su phaga sum yengjaramani adaida akoi ozana larik ta thambi akoi revolutionary se movement se decadent oirakpa the revolution is killed by her own children akoi violence defined over the ambiguous oirakpa state sponsored violence ka revolutionary violence ka terrorist violence ka se differentiate tawang ngamakta gray area la rakpadagi akoi gi revolution se akoi gi decadent oire marai sai thare haina ozana su thambi tawata mo ozana su thambi magi revolutionary ideals di hujik su relevant oi hujik su sathari matam amada akoi gi revolutionary kanguna hangkiba wahangdo hujik relevant oidrabra oribra masi akoina hangba chumbra haina khanjai magi action nadraga magi means to the decadent or agasu the questions that once they ask are they still relevant or do we need to relook into those questions which were asked once that is something that we have to bring ourselves back into smaina harak pasida kogi Albert Camus the rebels haise kamaina define the have tamda mamang da was aswamna a terrorist is the one who doesn't take no for an answer in a definition. PBK bedo. Adumaina Albert Camus a rebel is the one who says no and yes at the same time. No to the oppression and yes to the rights which are important to himself. And this is the moment when rebel begins to desire and he begins to judge. And rebel believed that there is a common ground where all men have a natural community. Sigi matanga hana panjaning badi akoina asfagi mayok rebel amat tauge harbadi akoi khakinati akoi asfa impose to biri akoi khakinati impose to ri moi gangu bisu akoina protest akoi resistance yauri because akoina oppose to ri base some sort of ideal which is above us which will outlive us fundamental human element ama hingnana bogi da ai phadana akoi gi changda yadra ideal gi damakta mayokta akoi resist tobone resistance against asfa is not merely against the act we are trying to defend the basic element of ours which makes us human being in that sense we are also defending for those people who are imposing asfa on us that means the ideals for which we are defending is far above us far beyond us Makada, rebellion is profoundly positive in that it reveals that part of human which must always be defended. There is a part of you and me and us and all of us which has to be always defended, and in that very defense we are against Armed Forces Special Powers Act. And this part of the human cannot be reduced to mere ideas, and that must be taken into consideration. Then that side is the passionate side of our nature, and that serves no other purpose than be a part of the act of living. Act of living is part of our ideal, so against the labor law,